In this video, we are going to talk about ggplot function. And the ggplot function is a function from ggplot2 package. So first of all, let me type ggplot function from ggplot2 package. And before you use it, you may want to install your package there. So you may type install.packages and use double quotation mark and ggplot2 and run that function. But if you have that package installed already, you may just type library ggplot2 so that you can use the function within the package. And the data set I'm going to use today is called iris. And you can use data on that dataset name to get access to it, or you can use head function on that dataset to have a quick look on the first 6 rows of the data. So we can see we have sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width, and we have species. So one thing I often do is to run the names function so that I have all the variable names printed out in the console, and I can just copy and paste them when I use it. So suppose I want to check, my first question here is that I want to check how sepal length would affect petal length. So this is my question, and I want to draw some plots to show that using ggplot. And first of all, for ggplot function, the first thing you want to put in is the dataset name. So if I just run it like this, you can see in my plotting area, I do have a gray paper. It's like a gray drawing paper there, and it is blank. Oftentimes you just use ggplot iris, and then you would assign the aesthetic information. So for example, my question here is how sepal length would affect petal length. So I would let x variable to be this sepal length, and I'm just going to copy it and paste it here. And then my y variable is petal length, so I'm going to copy it here. We still need to choose what kind of graph we are drawing. Are we drawing a histogram? Are we drawing a box plot? Are we drawing a scatter plot? So for now, we are going to draw the points, the scatter plot, and we need to use plus GEOM underline point. In that way, we are specifying the graph we want to draw. And you can see it here. We have sepal length on the x-axis, petal length on the y-axis. But just looking at this scatter plot, we are seeing like some dots are over here and another set of dots are over here. So it is like the dots are splitted, kind of 2 groups of dots. So another thing we can do after seeing this graph, is it something related to the species? We don't know, but we can check. And to check on that, we want to add the color to be a categorical variable so that we can really identify, like, are those 2 different sets of data are from the different species. So what I did is just added the color equals species within the AES parentheses. We have 1 species on the bottom, we have 2 other species on the top. And going forward, some of you may wonder, can we actually describe the pattern from this scatter plot? And yes, we can. So ggplot function is like a drawing paper. You can always add things, add your drawing to that picture. And I'm going to copy everything I have here, and I just use a plus sign to add on more drawing. And the first thing I want to do is called smooth, which means I'm going to add smoothing lines to show the patterns of the dots. And I'm going to run this. And that's not an error message, it just showed how we are smoothing the dots using some lines. And you can see here, we actually have splitted lines for different colors of the dots. That is for different species. And you can see the lines are curved lines. You can actually specify the line to be straight lines if you prefer linear models. And I just added the method equals LM, which means I'm using the linear line, which are straight lines, to describe the patterns or the trends of the dots. And I can still zoom it, and you can see these dots are described using the straight lines in their colors. Another thing we can do is that the shaded area around the line may bother you. And what we can do here is just to make the standard error, which is the shaded area, to be false. In that way, we will only see the lines describing the trends without any of the shaded areas, just to make it neat and clean. So one more thing I want to show you is that you can actually split the graphs into small pictures according to species. It is like we are pretending we are splitting the data into subsets, and we want to research on each subset separately. And to do that, I'm going to copy the 3 lines I have here, and I'm going to add this information. I'm going to split the data according to the species, and we can see it here. Species, we have a scatter plot about sepal length and petal length, and they are actually very different. And it is very clear when we split the one graph into 3 small graphs within a picture. Another thing I want to show you is that you may want to add more information to the data, right? You may want to define what your x variables are, what your x labs are, what your y labs are, and what is the graph title. Let me just name it as letter G. So this whole graph on the right side here is saved into a name G. And I can let G to add more information. So the first information is that I want to change the Y lab into sepal length, just to have a better looking. And I can even add the Y lab information, and I call it petal length. And one more thing I can do is to add a title of this graph. So I will not give too much detail, but I'm going to change the title to be more related to what we have. C is defined, and then I can run line 25 and forward. And if you zoom it out, you can see for this graph we have a title. We have changed the x lab, the x-axis information, the y-axis information, and it looks more clear in that way.